Checking in with another episode of LXBN TV, this is Colin O'Keefe. EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson announced late last month she'd be stepping down from her role after 4 years on the job. Since then, a bit of controversy has come to light. Joining me today to discuss her legacy is Michael Hecker of Hodgson Russ and their Clean and Green Law blog. Michael, what do you see as Lisa Jackson's legacy as she departs the EPA? Was her tenure a successful one?
Well, Colin, that's actually an interesting question. During her tenure, she obviously accomplished quite a few things, but I think whether or not her tenure was a success would be a matter of perspective. Progressives and environmentalists would both tend to agree that she's been able to accomplish quite a few things on the environmental front, which has kind of been a progression from the Bush administration. Most notably, in 2009, through the EPA, she was able to get an endangerment finding, which has been upheld by the courts regarding greenhouse gas emissions, which was used as an impetus to actually negotiate with the auto industry for increased fuel efficiency standards. By 2023, it's going to almost double from what it currently stands. Also, she's taken on what I would call traditional energy production sources, such as coal-fired power plants, and has passed increased regulations on them, such as limiting the emissions of certain pollutants like mercury, which has also had a side effect of limiting the ability of coal-fired power plants to actually even be developed in this country if they didn't already exist. So from that stance, you have progressives and environmentalists who generally would say she's been very productive. On the flip side, you also have conservatives and what I would call certain industry representatives who would say, while she has been able to increased regulation, she's also increased enforcement. She's also passed a number of strict regulations, which has been a detriment to the U.S. economy and also to job creation. It's made it more difficult for businesses in this country to, I guess, operate within the realm of what's financially feasible at this moment. And you've seen certain defeats regarding that same thing. There's been a number of instances where the EPA has actually tried to enforce a basis for water contamination related to hydraulic fracturing, which follow-up studies have shown that that wasn't the case. And there's also been a few other instances where there have been some issues. Overall, though, I would say she's certainly been able to accomplish quite a few things. Her goal was to make a dent into the climate change issue coming into the office, and she certainly was able to do that. It's just a matter of perspective as to whether or not you think that was successful.
Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on the news that the EPA was using email aliases during her tenure to possibly avoid the Freedom of Information Act? Did this, you think, lead to her resignation?
It certainly is curious that less than a month after that came to light, she announced her resignation, but I don't think that that would have been the sole cause of her resignation at this time, for a number of reasons. First of which, the EPA Inspector General's office has announced that they've undertaken a full investigation and that they will be doing a rolling production of the emails from Robert Windsor, which is, I believe, the name that she was using. But EPA has made a statement publicly that they don't think any of those emails will be an issue. But beyond that, it's not atypical for a cabinet-level position to go away after the first tenure. The first 4 years in office. Ms. Jackson, especially for her role in this administration, has been a lightning rod especially for congressional House Republicans. She's faced a great deal of controversy also in the news regarding the Keystone Pipeline. So this might just be a product of her kind of realizing that after 4 years, it's time to pass the rod to somebody who maybe is a little less controversial, who can get some things passed through when things are so partisan as they are in Washington right now. Additionally, I would note that it could also be partially related to frustration. In 2008, during President Obama's initial campaign, he made climate change a big part of his push to the public. In the last presidential election cycle with Mitt Romney, he hardly even mentioned it, and he's made public statements that business and increasing the economy are going to be his first priorities, and those actions related to the economy don't always coalesce with environmental regulation. And you can see that in 2011 when Ms. Jackson was stifled by the Obama administration with regard to her attempt to pass heightened standards related to ozone. So I think it's probably a culmination of a lot of things, but I don't think it's just related to those email addresses. So.
Again, that was Michael Hecker of Hodgson Russ's Clean and Green Law blog. To read more of his commentary, be sure to visit cleanandgreenlaw.com. And for curated insight from the Lex Blog Network's thousands of authors, along with more video interviews, visit us at lxbn.com. Thank you.